Welcome back to Bespoke Addict. And the John Lob that I modified the trees with cardboard in the previous video, I've just given them because they've been stored for years without correct fitting trees. These don't fit; they're the wrong trees, but they're the nearest I've got, but they're just not big enough. If you see the previous video, and the skins were not particularly dry, but they've been kind of wrinkled for a long time. I've just used a cream, very similar colour, and I've given it. They've already been moisturised, but they've been moisturised with the vamps misshapen. Now that I've puffed the vamps up and got a respectable sort of shape about them, just with cardboard sellotape to the trees inside, I can now sort of just use the moisturising cream on an old cloth, just rub it in, allow it to saturate into the skin. And a little bit of moisture will allow the skin to reshape. And, I'll do that 2 or 3 times in the next day. And then I will I'll dry buff. You'll get I have to clean that brush a bit. It's covered in cream. I've been using the cream to sort of stir it into the stitching and into the holes and so on. I'm just not allowing it to clog, but I'll let that dry. I'll dry buff it and then I'll just apply a little bit of polish and they'll be ready for sale. But I did want to make the vamps more presentable, but a little bit of moisture as well as something inside, which is the correct shape. And they will take on the new shape, no problem at all. Let's just pop those out of the way. And I'm still working on the 1960s alligator skins. I'm just going to pop an old towel over my trousers. I've been nourishing these for a couple of weeks. And I'm just going to give them one more go. They probably had, 10 applications. And I dare say they've never been done since they were new in the 60s. And I know they've had polish on them. The polish was all congealed when I first brought these to camera. So this is just creams. It doesn't really, it's various colours. It's fine for applications of new, fresh cream. But I know that's a lot lighter, but as I've discussed in previous videos, I don't want to use anything too dark that will darken these skins. Alligator and crocodile generally have lots and lots of tones, a lot of different tones, and applying something lighter will not lighten the darker tones. It will sort of refresh the dark colours. It will enrich the colour, but it won't change it. And it will just add a few tones between the scales where the skins tend to naturally be lighter. But it's just a case of just keep going until the skins stop accepting this cream. It might take a week, it might take a month. I've been going a couple of weeks so far, which is normal. I think it will take about a month of slowly applying the cream. And as I've said in previous videos, you can't just paste it on thick like butter and expect that to soak in. Oh, I'll just put those aside and let that soak in. It will not. It will draw certain properties within the skin, the more readily and easily absorbable properties will be drawn, and it will leave behind a sort of a sticky chewing gum like mess, which there'll be a lot of waxes and colour pigment left behind on the surface. It'll be a dreadful mess. And the skins will not be nourished. It'll just look an awful mess. I should have a second glove on, and I don't have one to hand, so I'm going to stop here. And I'm just, that's more than heavy enough. I'm just going to use this brush just to agitate and stir the cream in. I'll get another glove and I'll do the back, but I just wanted you to see them part way through. And it's been a couple of weeks since these have been to camera. There we go. Just agitate, because texture skins like alligator, crocodile, lizard, etc. The skins do clog dreadfully with the cream between the scales. Between the scales, the crinkly skin between the scales is far more absorbable. The scales themselves are actually quite impervious to the cream. You do have to work quite hard to get the cream to absorb through the scale itself. It's more drawn to the soft, crinkly skin around the scales, and it can easily cause it to clog. But it goes like a capillary effect into the wrinkly areas, and it goes behind the scale. To a certain degree, you will get some through the scale, but Most of it goes between the scales and capillary effect onto the back of the skin. Doesn't matter how it gets there, so long as they get nourished and moisturized. And I'll put a glove on so I can handle the thing without getting my hands completely filthy. And I'll do the back. And that will be it. I'll let that dry overnight. And when it's dry, I'll get the cleaner part of the brush and buff it to a bit of a sheen and apply more. And eventually, it will simply stop drawing the cream. It will leave behind a slightly sticky mess. It just won't be, that's starting to dry now. But if it's totally saturated, it leaves behind a slightly sticky mess. I'll just wipe off the excess with a dry cloth. Just wipe it off and allow it a few hours to dry. Then I'll buff. I'll spend some time buffing, and in the full knowledge that the skins are absolutely saturated. But they are lovely things, but I need to sort of clean all the foul mess off the edges. There's a slight burr to the edge. There's a slight glaze to the sole, which I'll be taking the glaze off and feeding the soles to. It's getting to the stage where the soles do need to be, they're probably 50% moisturized. It might take another couple of weeks. And during that time of applying extra cream to the top skins, I can start and feed a bit into the soles. You can get away with putting it on a lot heavier on the soles and sort of leaving it a little bit sticky, and the soles will draw it quite well, but not the dress skins. If you do that, you just end up with a sticky mess. So you have to apply very sparingly, agitate, never leave anything behind, expecting it to just suck in. It won't, it'll just be a mess, but you can get away with it on the soles.